Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's chat with 5 artists on the Greater Ithaca Art Trail. I am Robin Schwartz. I am the Program and Grant Director of the Community Arts Partnership. And I'm going to ask everyone to stay on mute, and you can feel free to use the chat, put your questions in the chat, put any comments you might have in the chat, and that would be great. And at the end, after all of the artists speak, then we can have a Q&A and an after party if you want to stay on. So the first, I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So for those of you who don't know what the Community Arts Partnership is, our mission is to strengthen the arts in Tompkins County by supporting artists and arts groups, ensuring equitable access to the arts, and cultivating a creative culture that reflects our community's diversity. We've got a lot of programs. We've got workshops. We've got this Greater Ithaca Art Trail. There's a Spring Rights Literary Festival. We have a gallery called the Art Space. Capapalooza is awesome. It's a fundraiser that we have. And we collect previously owned art. We do not ask artists to donate their art. We ask you to donate the art that you have in your closets or your basements, or that you inherited or you don't want. And we take that and we sell it. And it happens in December, and information is on our website. And then we have grant programs. We have a lot of grant programs. If you're in Tompkins County, please visit our website. I will put the website link in the chat. But grants are due in January for 2024 events. And I'm running free Zoom and live workshops from October through December. Grant writing workshops, info, advice, and I'm about to tape myself doing one so that you don't even have to come to one of those workshops. You could just watch tape of it. Did you hear that noise? So arttrail.com is one of our programs. This is a screenshot of the Art Trail website. You have visited the website probably in order to register for this Zoom event, but 28 artists are open this weekend. There were 35 that were open last weekend. Many of them are open again this weekend. And if you go to this website, arttrail.com, you will find the list of who's open. There's also a downloadable map. Here, look at my head. I'm holding it up. There's this great map. This is the printed copy, but the downloadable one is identical. And this downloadable map has 55 artists on it. They're not all open. In order to find out who's open, you have to actually go to the website, and on the event page, there's a list. There's another Zoom talk tomorrow night. We have a group exhibit, and look at this really cool thing. Oh, this is each artist has a page on the website. I just wanted to show you that you can go and learn about each artist. This is actually Cai's page, who's on the call tonight. And this, on the event page of arttrail.com, there is a virtual exhibit. This is virtual. This is a 3D exhibit that you can move around the room online. It's really, really cool. And there is a live exhibit as well in the Cap Art Space in downtown Ithaca. So we're going to start tonight. I'm going to start this with Barbara Behrmann. And Barbara, I'm going to highlight you. There you are. I'm going to put you at the top of the screen. And people can actually go, if you could go to the top and you could do grid view and you could just see the speaker. So Barbara, you're up in the little right-hand corner of our screens, and I'm going to turn the virtual mic over to you.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Robin. Thanks to the Community Arts Partnership for making the Art Trail possible. I am both a fabric artist who makes abstract art quilts and a painter who creates abstract acrylics. And so I wanted to start very quickly with some very brief background about myself. I started a long time ago as a traditional quilter, but after a few years, I realized that I didn't want to make functional pieces based on patterns that other people had made. And instead, I wanted to create my own designs to make art quilts. Well, art quilts are similar to functional quilts in that they're typically made up of at least 3 layers. There's the quilt top that you see. There's the backing underneath, and in between is a layer of batting that adds some depth, and in the case of functional quilts, it adds some warmth. These layers are typically held together with decorative stitching that ideally enhances the design of the quilt top. But like a painting or a photograph, an art quilt is not intended to be used functionally. It's simply intended to be displayed on the wall as art. So this next slide is kind of an overview of the different kinds of fabric art that I make today. Robin, are you? Yeah,
Oh,
okay. Nope.
I stuck this one in, Barbara. I wanted to show people what it looks like when they come visit you.
Oh,
So there's Barbara smiling. Okay, there you go.
thanks. This is an overview of some of the kind of pieces that I make today. These are all quilts. One of the things that's changed is my style has changed a lot over the years. And then starting about 5 years ago, I started to make my own fabrics using fiber reactive dye, all sorts of techniques to do that. That's been a lot of fun. And shortly after that, just before everything went into lockdown, I also started to paint and play with mixed media collage. And this next slide shows a sample of what that work might look like. I work on paper, on wood panels, and stretched canvases. And I've just fallen in love with working abstracted, which I joke is really good since I've yet to figure out how to do representational work decently. Well, initially, it seems like the kind of work that I do, fabric art, paintings, have nothing in common. But in fact, I've come to realize that they do share some common characteristics. So in the interest of time, since I can't just go into depth about, both of them, I thought I would use the remaining time here to show you a few more samples of my work and talk about what some of the common elements are regardless of medium. So the first element, which you can see in this next slide, is a lot of saturated color. Color is almost always my starting point, regardless of whether it's painting, quilts, collages. It's just a great kind of therapy. It's hard to stay depressed with this world when you're looking at so many colors. So this particular image is a compilation of cropped sections of art quilts, paintings, and collage. And one of the things I like about this is that when you look at it quickly, you can't necessarily tell which is fabric and which is painting. And I should note that each of these little boxes is all a smaller segment of a larger piece that I have. They're all on greeting cards that I have for sale. So I mentioned color here. A lot of my work is influenced by the color of the Southwest, which you can see in this next picture. These are paintings on the left, a collage in the middle, and a quilt on the right. My mother lives in Tucson, so I spend a fair amount of time there, and I just love the color palette. This is very much related to the next characteristic of a lot of my work, and that has to do with the influence of place, especially landscapes, rural, urban, and in many cases, even imaginary. I learned the phrase recently, emotional geography, which I think is really interesting. It's a concept that has to do with our emotions as we interact with our environments and our attachment to place. It just made a lot of sense to me when I heard that, and I think that that comes out in a lot of my work. You can see that in this next image. It's a quilt that I made based on, if you want to go to, the quilt's on the left. It's based on it's a picture of a slot canyon based on a photo that I took. You can see the photo on the right. This was taken in northern Arizona. And you can see the influence of place in my paintings as well in the next slide. These images are more imaginary than real, but clearly influenced by my travels out west. Well, a third common element in a lot of my work has to do with the fact that so much of it is abstract, non-representational, and often improvisational. And this basically means that I start out with a piece without having any idea of what it's going to look like when I'm done. So for example, with my quilts, I might start out by sewing a few pieces of fabric together, cutting them in two, inserting another piece, putting them back together, cutting them, shifting them, moving them around. And if you go to this next slide, Robin, you can see what that might look like. The top left, I'm just starting to put these little mini compositions on the design wall. I have a 6 by 6 foot design wall. And then going across the top to the right, they're starting to come together. Bottom left, it looks like it's almost done, but in fact, I probably moved those pieces around hundreds of times to get to the final image, which you see here on the bottom right. So it's a lot of fun. I typically don't make a painting by cutting things up, although I do sometimes, but it's still an improvisational process with prior decisions influencing later ones. And this next slide shows what I mean by that. It's a single, different steps in a single painting, moving across from top left to the right and then bottom row left to right. I thought I would try something that was kind of canyon-like, and kept building up layers and building up layers, and didn't like where it was going, and it ultimately became the piece on the bottom right. So again, very improvisational. It also relates to the fourth and final element that I'll talk about, which is that my work is very layered. You can see it here in this painting. And oftentimes there are, I don't know how many layers go into a lot of my work. But I really like seeing evidence of old layers peeking through, whether it's textures or shapes, where you're just sort of are getting the idea of what's been laid down before. And of course, quilts, by definition, are layered. The next slide, Robin, shows two quilts. These each have 6 layers. A quilt sandwich, because sandwich has a top, a middle, and a bottom. I already described that. So this is basically a quilt sandwich on top of another quilt sandwich. So 6 layers altogether. I mentioned earlier that I make a lot of my own fabrics, and a lot of the techniques that I use just to make the fabrics are layered. This next slide shows what I mean. These are 4 different pieces that represent very different techniques and processes used to make them, but all of them are layered. And then I take these fabrics and I cut them up and use them in my quilts. They're a lot of fun to make. I could do an hour presentation just on this. If you'd like to see more of my work in person, I hope you'll come out this weekend on the Art Trail. My studio is in Danby. I'm in the woods just south of Ithaca, right off of 96B. During open studio hours, I basically turn most of our main floor, which is ordinarily our living area, into an art gallery. And I'm very thankful that I have a very tolerant husband who lets me do that and doesn't complain too much. I hope to see you all this weekend. I hope you'll visit my website or follow me on Instagram. It's Art Quilts by Barb. I made the name before I started to do painting, and now I have this URL that only really represents part of what I do, but that's what it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. I didn't actually know a lot of that stuff. Like, I'd never really seen how somebody pieced together a quilt before. So, and I never suspected as much layering as I saw.
Oh, yeah.
So the sizes of your hanging wall art quilts are like what, like 20 by 30, or?
They range from about 48 to 50 on one dimension to 50 or 60 inches is about the widest I go, and some of them are more like the size of a smaller painting. And I have pieces that are also just 6 inches by 6 inches that are mounted on wood blocks. All sizes of quilts. They're all on my website. And yeah, there's all sizes, all price points. What people like to hang in their home in terms of size is very different. What a show is going to want to put in, and what a gallery might look for, or what a juried show might look for. So I try to do pieces in a wide range of sizes.
Great. So next is Cai. Cai, I was trying to find you. I think you need to activate your
screen. Yeah, I'm right here.
Right here.
I might be able to.
Oh, there you
are. I can spotlight myself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can spotlight yourself. Good.
Yeah.
All righty. Here we go. Next up is Cai Quirk. Turning the mic over to Cai.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robin. So I am a local photographer. I do both fine art as well as photography, as well as photos of local places and portraits. I'm going to put in the chat my 2 websites, and I was on the art trail this past weekend, but this weekend I'm out of town. So if you'd like to see some of the work, more of the work that I'm sharing today, you can check out these 2 websites. You can go to the first slide.
You hear that little bell? There we go.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
So these are a couple of the photos of local photography, and of course I have a variety of prints of these kinds of images. And My fine art practice and my kind of practice of creating prints of other kinds of images are very intertwined, because always when I'm going out creating some of the images for example, the book that I recently published, I'm always kind of creating both kinds of images as one. So these are samples of local falls, both at Treeman. And Robin, you can go to the next one. So on the right is an image from my recent book. The book is titled Transcendence, Queer Restoration, and it's around gender, mythology, spirituality, and storytelling. There's a lot of stories in the modern world that are very dismissive and harmful around queer identities, but in so many communities around the world, they were very uplifting and celebrating of trans folks and folks that the modern American society would call trans. And I recognized that a lot of the stories in my own heritage had likely been erased. And so I set out to create some of these stories. The photo on the left, I created on the same day as the one on the right. They're both at Treeman Falls, Lucifer Falls at Treeman Park. And so as I create the images for some of the more conceptual series, it's very much intertwined with the deep resonance with the natural spaces that I'm finding. Robin, you can go to the next slide. So this image down on the right lower corner is another one from this series. This is one where I was out in the 28-degree weather for an hour working on creating this image. But some of these behind the scenes photos, or like photos that then later turn into prints, are some of the other parts that play into this. In that photo in the bottom corner, I'm holding a sunflower, like the I don't know if it's not exactly the husk, but like the, kind of the center part of the sunflower. And I'm kneeling on fallen oak leaves. And so also from that day, in the top right corner, are those leaves strewn across the driveway, the land that I live on. And on the left is also in the garden. Oh, I should have said that the part that I'm kneeling in is the dug up potato bed that then has been covered with snow, and I've filled in the leaves. But the sunflower came from another place in the garden. Robin, you can go to the next photo. So the photos that I'm showing here are all ones that are specifically local, just knowing that, the theme tonight is local artists. And so this is just a different scene, wanting to show kind of this path in different scenes, as well as when I was creating the book, at some point, I pinned up all the images that I had that I knew were going to make it into the book, and thought, what's missing, what's not here? And I recognized that though I had taken a bunch of the images in fall, none of them were showing vibrantly fall colors. And so specifically setting out to do that. And when I set out to create these images, I follow this feeling of kind of an internal compass. For myself, I describe it spiritually, of like feeling kind of like I'm following spirit in some of these places. But I arrive to a woods or a set of dunes or things like that, and then feel the inner pulls in different directions, sometimes in circles, but like with that path, with the collaborations with spirit and with nature, I come to places that I never would have found otherwise. Like this arch of vines I had passed many times on hikes before, but then when I set out following these inner pulls, it pulled me off the path right at that spot, and I found this place. All of the images are self-portraits of this particular series, and so for these, I then position myself multiple times in the image and merge those together. Robin, you can go to the next one. I want to show a couple images from the new series that I'm working on. So that the book that I was mentioning, and you can see more on my website, caiquirk.com, that came out this year. And the new project that I've been working on has been taking photos of similar themes to some of the ones from that book, but then turning them with a lot of Photoshop and some AI, like artificial intelligence, turning them into stained glass like images. I then have these printed on, usually on fabric. These two I both have as 4 by 5 foot tapestries, and they will be a part of the show that I'll be doing at the Community Arts Partnership Art Space in January. So that'll be with opening on January 5th. So I'd invite folks to come to that. And you can, I think there's one more image, Robin, just showing how the photo gets turned into the tapestry. This is the image that originally came of it. And similarly to how I work when I'm doing self-portraits, when I'm doing portraits with other people, I'm never setting up something that is very overtly like I didn't set them up in this like kind of perfect lined up thing. I asked them to get one behind the other, and then the person in front to move in. We're all in a dance community together, and so to move in some way and for the others to respond to those movements. And it just happened for a split second that they were all in this perfect way lined up out of the many other images that came out of that photo shoot that were many of them beautiful as well. But just showing a little bit of kind of the behind the scenes process of how I'm working with this. And this also gives samples of some of the portrait photography that I do if those are things that are of interest to you. So these tapestries are not yet available as prints. They likely will be by the time of the show, and that's another encouragement to show up to the show. But you can check out my other website, quirk.photography, for photo prints, as well as if you're interested in portrait photography or product photography or anything like that. Robin, I forgot to keep track of time, so I think I'm under 10
Oh, yeah,
minutes.
that's fine. And
If you have
and
any
to buy your
questions.
book, and they could buy your book at your website as well.
Yes, it has a link to the publisher's website, which is skylarkeditions.org. But yes, it's linked directly from my website.
And thanks for plugging your exhibit on our website, which is, I put it in the chat, it's artspartner.org. We have a different website for the Art Trail. Art Trail is just the Greater Ithaca Art Trail. Artspartner.org, which is in the chat, is the Community Arts Partnership. And there's a page for our gallery, and you'll see the upcoming shows. And Cai is scheduled for January of 2024. I forgot to mention, by the way, you guys, that the Art Trail also has second Saturday events. So like on every month, November 11th, December, whatever the second Saturday is, there are more studios that are open. So there's more than just the October chances to visit artist studios, and that's all on arttrail.com. So next we're going to talk to Inshik Lee, and take it away.
Hi.
I made this cover slide for you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. My name's Inshik Lee. I sent Robin, I did not follow directions. I sent Robin a whole bunch of more than 10 images. So I'm just going to, she picked 10, and I'm going to speak to ones that show up. But first, so this is a great one to start out. Oh, also, by the way, the two previous artists, beautiful work.
Yeah.
Very nice. This is a collage that I created that I sent out to invite people to my open house. I was lucky enough to be granted a fellowship this past year. It was called the Rural and Traditional Artists Fellowship of New York State. It was sponsored by Governor Hochul and the New York State Arts Council and the Council for the Arts of Wyoming County. So what this fellowship is that 10 artists in New York State were picked to focus on the disparity, the fellowship was created to address the disparity between urban and rural artists. So the 10 artists were asked to propose a project. And so today I'm just pretty much going to talk about the one project that I have proposed. My background is that I was trained as an architect, And in the last few years since COVID, and I'm considering myself an emerging artist, and I do multimedia work, but mostly in this project is really a land installation, addressing my personal relationship with my land. I sit on 197 acres here in Freeville, New York. And when I bought this land, I was working with my architect friend, William Downing, downtown Ithaca as an architect. And he was so excited. He was like a mentor and father to me. And he immediately decided that I had to worry about my retirement and came up with ideas to subdivide my acreage into like 75 plus homes. Of course, I brought that drawing home and my husband said, we're not doing that. So over the last 18 years, this art piece, this particular is just part of the process of my relationship with my land. I called it Figure Ground, Freeville Arts Figure Ground 2023, and it addresses, thank you for the slide, perfect, because as an architect, I spent a lot of time drawing figure ground drawings of city plans and architecture in space, in urban settings and rural settings. And so in my teachings, I was teaching students how to think about design of mazes. And so I went off on a tangent about creating mazes and creating systems. And so I started doing these mappings of life. These are sort of metaphors for all the ways that one can traverse through life. And then now I'm working on them as a surface to which I can apply traditional media. So in this particular figure ground, I've painted in the background, the figure ground areas, and then the plantings in these two. The first one is I've done the very traditional plantings that I found on my property while I was doing my installation. And then on the right is just, again, another layer of figure ground of the silhouettes of the milkweed, the goldenrod, the invasives, the non-invasives, the butterflies, the grapes, so on and so forth. So it's just yet another translation of going back one. So when I'm thinking about my land, this quotation came up. I think having land and not ruining it is the most beautiful art that anyone could ever want to own. I think it actually is anybody could own. But this is a quote by Andy Warhol, who I had no idea had any relationship to land per se, but I found it to be quite pertinent for the way I've been thinking about my land. So on my barn where I live, I painted this figure ground maze. And then at my opening on Sunday, we have this little guy, Ro, who showed up. And it turns out there's many layers of relationship. So his father is an artist, and then also his grandmother is also a local artist, the Mellows. So I just love this little fall picture. I'm sorry for those who missed us. Part of my conversation is about the idea of development. And so I borrowed, or I upcycled a whole bunch of real estate signs from the local real estate agency, Warren, and I made all these signs so that in front of every property, which I subdivided my property into 11 1-acre homes, and put out some real estate signs for people to engage as they walk the property. I have a drone footage, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to see it.
What I did was I took pictures of.
Here we go. Okay,
Yeah,
so part of this is part of my land. What I did was I created 1-acre plots, and within every acre plot, I went ahead and mowed out the circles, which represents the area required for a septic and well system for every home. And as you can see in the background, there's a house just across the street from us, which is approximately 2,000 square feet, which is actually small for a residence nowadays. In each of the 11 plots, I left a figure or the footprint of different square footages. In the center of the lot, of the land. I've left this sort of mazy pathways, which is very counter to the very rigid circular and rectilinear forms that I've cut into the property. So this past Sunday, people were able to walk out into this neighborhood. I called it a grow and mow of a faux mini subdivision. So
see what this previous slide was. Oh,
right. So there, I put
yes.
these real estate signs up in front of every lot, so that and then I also have on the reverse, I have signage that I don't know if any of you guys remember these things called Burma shave signs, where you, if you went out west, you drove, and as you were driving by, you saw the part of a sentence, and then it made a story like, so you could be here if you were lived here, you would be home, and then it would say, you know, Burma shave or something. So on the backs of these slides, of these signs, I have a story that's being told. So you actually, I'm having some I was actually I'm having a videotape created, and I'll be sharing that at some point on my website when that gets created.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think that
Thank
was,
you.
let me see whether that was the last slide. Yes, it was.
Great.
So thank you. That was, yeah, I went to her property on, was it Saturday or Sunday? And there were like the park there were like 50 cars there. It was an amazing event.
We had a great turnout. Yeah.
It wasn't raining at the point where we were there. It rained while you were talking. And then when you finished talking, everyone went outside and walked the land, and I met a lot of people, and it was very, very cool.
Great.
So now I'm going to turn
Thank
I'm going to remove your spotlight, and I'm going to highlight Stefani. There she is. I'm going to spotlight. Or Kai, if you could help me spotlight Stefani.
There we go. All right. Hi there. I'm Stefani Woodams. I live on Greystone Farm, where my studio is, and my family's been on this land for almost 100 years. The studio here is built from trees that I helped plant when I was 5. So we really do work on sustainable here. And oddly enough, I didn't start carving wood until about 3 years ago, when I needed a cutting board. And I went out to the shop and grabbed a scrap of wood and made a fish-shaped cutting board, and thought, oh, that was fun. So I got carried away and decided to do a whole lot of more carving. And this is the back of a cutting board. People told me they didn't really want to cut on them because they were too pretty, so I put keyhole slots in them. And if you really don't want to cut on them, you can hang them up. I cut on them, but all right. And next one.
Ooh.
And I also, these are not wood. These are made from glass. I learned how to do flamework glass when I was taking some classes at Corning. And these are little owl pendants. They sell them at 15 Steps as well as at my studio. And I make all different kinds of owls. These are snowy owls, females and males. And you can go to the next slide. And these are a bunch of little brown owls, great horned owls and screech owls. And we have lots of owls on the farm, all different sorts. And next one. All right, here's a picture of the front of the cutting boards. And I make them in a variety, and I don't always have the ones that I have pictured here because people buy them and then I make more. And right now I'm a little low on inventory, but it just means I need to make more art. And the cherry wood that these are made of also comes from the farm. We have a sawmill and we cut lumber, and these are from boards that couldn't be used for building other things. And they're decorated with pyrography, which is wood burning. And then I seal them with cutting board oil. So you can either cut on them for a cutting board, just look at them, or use them as like a cheese board or something like that. And next one. And this is where I got carried away after doing cutting boards. And did some more carving. This is carved in a piece of maple. Maple is a great wood to carve because it has a really nice tight grain, so you can get a lot of detail. So this is the top of a piece that has goldfinch and thistles all the way down it. And I used wood burning, the pyrography, and then touched it up with some oil paint, just plain artist's oil, and then gave it a spray of polyurethane to hold it. And that's in a private collection. And so next one. And this is a red-bellied woodpecker made from a scrap of cherry that I had. I had actually cut a cutting board out of that piece of wood, and I liked the curve. I also liked the knot, which didn't work on the cutting board, but it made me think of a woodpecker. So I carved all the flowers in the bird and used pyrography and a little more oil paint and made the bird. This piece is about a foot square, so a fairly small carving. And it was up at the Schweinfurth for an exhibit up there, but then I got it back home, which is nice. And the next slide. And this is a rabbit, which I finished this spring. It's carved in cherry and then set into a piece of scrap lumber. It was basically a couple of 2x6s that I stained a little bit and made to fit the rabbit sculpture in. A lot of the leaves and flowers were carved separately, and then I assembled it. And this is done with pyrography and oil paint as well. And the picture is taken in my studio, actually on top of the hot tub. All studios should have a hot tub. And the background is the cordwood in the thermal wall in the greenhouse. And you can see a glass paperweight in the wall next to the rabbit that's also of a rabbit. And next one. And this is a flame worked bracelet. It's called Which Came First? And, you know, the chicken or the egg. And 15 Steps has these. And also I do have them at the studio. And we will be open this coming weekend. And I'm usually open on second Saturdays, but not always. You just need to check. And this is Italian glass, which is a soft glass, as opposed to Pyrex, which is a hard glass. But they're fairly sturdy. I annealed them all in the kiln. And next one.
Oop,
And
was
that's it. Okay. I wasn't sure how much
Yeah.
I sent Robin, and I just uploaded a whole bunch of files and said I'll talk about them as they show up. So there we go.
So and so I went to visit Stefani last weekend, and another artist, Carlton Manzano, is directly across the street. I mean, just right across the street, his painting studio. So there's a few people out in Freeville Way. So that was fun this year. And I got to talk to Stefani's goats. You know, that's one of the fun things about the art trail. It's not just art. You're seeing like all this other cool stuff that they might have on their property. I have never been that close to a goat. I, somehow got to 60 something years without really communing with goats. So it's one of the reasons I like the art trail. It's an adventure. So thank you, Stefani, so much.
You're welcome.
Next is going to be Margaret Corbett. And I'm going to remove the spotlight on Stefani. And I will find Margaret. There she is. And spotlight. And I see some similarities between the work of Stefani and you. What we're going to see, even though yours is ceramics and hers is wood and glass. So take it away.
Thank you, Robin. And I gotta say, I'm really impressed with everything I've seen this evening. What a wonderful community. I have questions for everyone, but that's not what we're doing right now. I'm Margaret Corbett. My nickname is Corbett. My husband Wes Blauvelt and I have Raven Barn Studio out at the south end of Danby. And I'll take the first slide. We've been doing this for about 10 years. This is a mirror that Wes made this past spring. It's a combination. Most of our pieces are combinations of salvaged commercial tile and handmade tiles that we make ourselves. And this is hanging on the wall in the workshop area of our space. We have a black barn near the end of Howland Road. It's hard to find, but it's worth coming out to find us. I'll take the next slide. This is a piece that Wes is working on currently. He said this afternoon he had filled in most of it. We salvage many of our frames from reuse, and most of the commercial tile comes from reuse or from donations. And then I make cookie cutters out of aluminum strips. So the swallows in this picture are all made with the cookie cutters. The pressed tiles in the corners are pressed from molding molds, Victorian ceiling, plaster ceilings. This would be a little copper mold that they would use to do the plaster. Wes presses it into the clay and makes tiles with it. The round white pieces that you see are something called a doily blob. We first started doing this with Isaiah Zagar from Philadelphia's Magic Garden, and I highly recommend, if you ever get a chance to go to Philly, to go on a tour of his installations. He's got more than 100 mosaic murals around the South Philadelphia. And so the doily blobs are one of his signature things, and also around some of the, well, it'll be easier to see in other tiles, but there are some mirror pieces, and that's another thing that he does. Next tile, or next, yeah, okay. So here's Wes. You can see the mirrors around the doily blob in the upper left-hand side there. And this is a work in progress. We made the penguin tiles, he glazed them, and the dolphin, and the rest are salvaged. Okay, next tile, or next, right. This is a table. So this is an aluminum table that we got yeah, I think it's aluminum. It's probably from around 1970s. We cleaned it up and painted it, and then Wes made the top for it. Again, he's been doing a lot of swallows this year. And the little daisy tiles are tiles that we make as well. Next. These are tiles that I have been working on over the last 2 weeks. I'll be glazing this coming weekend. I just made a big cookie cutter. That fish down on the bottom left-hand side is easily probably 13 inches across and maybe 8 inches tall, and the others are respectively smaller. So I'm going to make some kind of fish pond. A lot of these tiles would go into that, although I think a lot of those leaves are going to go into a piece that I'll show in one of the subsequent slides. So next slide. There's 2 more of them. I'm planning on doing color variation on them. All of the texturing is done by hand while the clay is still wet. It's not pressed from any kind of mold. Okay, next. This is a selection of sort of inventory. We've had a wonderful time working with the people over at 171 Cedar Arts in Corning. And so some of the tiles in the upper left-hand side are actually wood-fired. They Corning Community College has a two wood-fired kilns, and we got to participate in burns over there. Also the green acorns and the bird on the top right side, those are raku, and we've done a couple of raku firings with them. Next slide. I'm in the process of making just starting to design a mosaic that's going to be of water lilies. I got a commission last year to make water lilies for a woman out in Sedona, California, Arizona. And I sent all of those off to her, and I was sad to see them leave. So I've started making some of my own. And these are water lily leaves, some stems, a frog. And those slabs at the bottom, they're going to get smashed up to become the background. Next slide. There's some of the water lilies, just starting to piece it all together. She wanted complete water lily flowers. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. I want them to be broken up and look more natural. So I made parts of flowers, and we'll see what comes of that. Next slide. Next slide. And this is our studio. Oh, so I didn't send you so this is the ceramic part of the studio. We have our own kiln, we have a slab roller, we have working tables. The cookie cutters are in those boxes under the table in the middle. We brush glaze, we don't dip glaze. So all of our glazes are in the back there. And we have a huge commercial sink. I think this might be the last slide.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you're not open this weekend, but are you open by appointment?
Oh yeah, no, we are open this weekend.
Oh, you are? Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah. We're open this weekend. We welcome people to come. I will be glazing and Wes will be gluing.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to just tell you that tomorrow we're going to have Ann Reichlin here on the left. She does drawings, but also installations. Here's Sue Brightly, also tomorrow night. Don Ellis, Michael Ludgate, photography, and Brian Keeler. I like this. He's taken a picture of himself painting this scene in Italy. That was pretty cool. So I'm going to stop the share right now. And if anybody has any questions, ask them now. Put them in the chat, and I'll pull up the artist. And Margaret, you said you had some questions, so you can say them out loud if you have any questions for any of the other artists.
Yeah, so I'm interested in the different textile techniques that were used in the quilts, in making your own fabric. I think there were different kinds for Barbara. I think there were different kinds of resists that were being used.
Some of them were done with resists. One of my favorites, it's super messy, but it's a lot of fun, is to do a flour resist, Flour. And so you take, you make like a thin pancake batter with flour and water, and you spread it on a piece of fabric. That fabric can be plain white fabric, or it can have already been dyed through like an immersion technique, so it has a base colors. You spread the flour paste on it, you let it dry, which can take over 24 hours, and then you crinkle it all up. And wherever and then you kind of like, brush off the bits of dried batter essentially that falls off. And wherever there's a space, wherever there's a crack, when you spread thickened dye over it, that dye will seep through on those cracks. And then if you want, you can let that dry, re-crinkle it up so you get a new set of lines, and then put a different color of dye on it so you can keep layering it. And it's just, it's a pain to clean, because you not only have to rinse out all the dye, but you're getting all that flour gunk out. but the pattern that it leaves is just wonderful. There's another resist technique. I don't know if it was in the image that I showed you there or not. Kind of like batik, except in putting wax directly on the fabric, you put it on a silk screen, and then you can reuse it over and over again. I don't remember what else did I show you. There's resist from stencils, just putting stencils down either directly on the fabric or between a silk screen and the fabric underneath, and you can layer stencils and different colors of dyes, because the dyes are kind of translucent, so you can see the colors through them. What else does that give you? I mean, yeah, there's a I mean, honestly, I don't know how interested people are in this, but you get me started and I can just go for an hour. I did a workshop this summer with a nationally renowned instructor named Carol Soderlund. And it was 5 days. And I swear to God, I was like hyperventilating for all 5 days. It was just, it was so exciting. And I just feel I learned so much from it, and just like a deeper level of knowledge. So, yeah, I'm not far from you, I guess, because I'm in Danby.
Oh,
So,
great.
yeah. So if you want to stop by sometime, twist my arm and I'll tell you more.
I had a question for Kai. I was trying to figure out how are you actually taking your tripod onto the waterfall and trying to set it up, and then you have like a switch in your hand where you're taking a picture of yourself? Like, how are you doing that?
So that image where I'm underneath the water, that's one of the few in the whole series where I did actually have someone with me to help do that image, and that was mostly because of the water. That usually I can connect my phone to my camera, so my phone can see what the camera is seeing. It's connecting via, I'm pretty sure, Wi-Fi, and so that's how I do most of the images. But that one, because there was water and no place to set down the phone, that I did have someone with me, and because it's at Treatment Falls and random people could just show up, somebody was there just for being kind of that support as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
most of them are done without any supporting people.
my brain immediately goes to like logistics.
Yep.
And I had a question for Stefani. Maybe you said this and I missed it, but how did you learn to do the glass stuff? Like, did you take a class? Were you?
I did take a class at Corning, and before that, I had taken a class, oddly enough, over at SUNY Cortland, where someone advertised it as a glass blowing class, but it wasn't. It was flame working. You stick a piece of glass in a torch when you do flame working. Glass blowing, you need a big furnace. Flame working's much easier for the average person because you can set that up pretty easily. It's a great deal of fun because you're working with glass at about 2000 degrees and it's about an inch from your fingers, but glass doesn't conduct heat very well, so you can get away with it. Although if you mess with hot glass, you're going to get burned. I have scars all over my arms like every other flame worker, but yeah, it's worth it. So, yep.
Thank you. And I don't have any questions in the chat. Did anybody have any? You could say any out loud. If not, listen, I have to do some updates on the list of people who are open this weekend. I made in the old days before the pandemic, if you were in the brochure, you were open, but now people have had emergencies, COVID, the list is a little bit fluid. So I have a couple of updates to make to it today. So by tomorrow morning at arttrail.com on the event page, there will be a list of who is open this weekend that will be accurate. I know someone is doing a raku firing. And there are 28 artists that are open. So if you're local, I really encourage you to come. If you're not local, I say hi to my cousin Carol in Oregon. Hi, Carol. You can come to tomorrow night and meet 5 more artists. But otherwise, thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight. And now we're starting the after party, so you could leave or stick around. I'm just going to chat with the artists. So thanks for showing up, everyone. Oh, and I have to stop
Thank you.
the tape. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Robin.
Stay on, Margaret. I have a question for you.